The last time that Christians were able to observe Good Friday in church was back in 2019. That was before COVID. Remember those days? Well, this Easter weekend, throngs of believers will be able to celebrate in places of worship of their choice. But some church leaders say the festivities are actually marred by government's COVID-19 safety regulations because of indoor venue restrictions. Monique Mortlock, hello again to you, attending the Good Friday service this morning. That was at St. George's Cathedral earlier today. So why are congregants and church leaders upset? Because there is still a bit of confusion around the new regulations for churchgoers. What are the regulations? Why are people upset?
We know that the health minister has now extended the public commentary for those new draft health regulations. The public has until the 24th of April to make any comments or recommendations they might have. These health regulations are for the managing of COVID-19, because even though we are no longer in a national state of disaster, government has found it prudent that we still implement policies that could see the safety of the greater society against the virus. And today it was mainly church leaders that were telling me that they would like to see more than a 50% capacity for those indoor venues, because they feel they are equipped enough to ensure the safety of congregants. One church leader informed me that because of these regulations, this cap on that indoor capacity, that it's actually stunted the growth of his church in Mfuleni. But many of the congregants who I spoke to at different churches, as you mentioned, I started at St. George's Cathedral in Cape Town. Many of the congregants there telling me they were just excited to be in the house of the Lord for the first time since 2019, because for the last 2 or so years, 2020 and 2021, many people have had to celebrate what is considered one of the holiest weekends for Christians. They've had to celebrate it at home, watching televised services. And I then also went to the New Apostolic Church in Silvertown in Athlone, where I caught the tail end of that service. And in that church, the ministers are still implementing safety measures like social distancing, sanitizing of hands, and of course the wearing of masks indoors, which is still compulsory. I also then went to Mfuleni to the Kingdom of God Ministries, where I spoke to Pastor Sinikon Tlesi, who was quite upset by these regulations, and he even made a plea to the public to make comments to government while they still can make comments on these draft health regulations, calling on government to further relax the regulations, albeit only for the churches, to enable congregants, to enable that full attendance of congregants. But at his church, as you will see in the coming visuals, in his church it was quite full, not much social distancing, although most people were wearing their masks. It was quite a packed venue, and as my colleague Asanda and I were leaving, we saw even more congregants coming into the church to take part in that Good Friday divine service. But let's just take a look at the story I put together from the various visits I conducted today.
We have visited various churches across Cape Town where Christians have been observing Good Friday. It's the day Christians believe Jesus sacrificed his life for the forgiveness of sins. For many of the congregants we spoke to, being back in church on this holy day after 30 years was an emotional experience.
It's wonderful to be in the Lord's house, that we can be blessed. And to think of you at this moment, our ministers and our president, for this wonderful occasion. I thank you.
It's overwhelming, a bit emotional, but overall extremely grateful. It feels really good. It actually feels really emotional because it's very different being at home and watching it on a screen compared to being, you know, in the Lord's house to worship Him and just in the moment with everyone else.
Before it felt extremely isolating, just like watching it at home and being alone all the time, and now being here in the fellowship and like you really get to like feel the Spirit and experience God, which is really cool.
Churches have been implementing various measures over the last 2 years to ensure the safety of their members once they were allowed to congregate once more as lockdown regulations eased. Some, like the New Apostolic Church in Silvertown in Athlone, still stream services on social media for those unable to attend due to the venue capacity restrictions or due to comorbidities.
These services are broadcast via the various media platforms that we do have available, and it's free, it is streamed, and members have access then to be able to enjoy and be part of the service and follow and be part of the word that is given to them. Even though they are at home, they feel part of the community.
And while there are churches like the one I'm standing at, St. George's Cathedral, that are still observing social distancing, at others, this was virtually non-existent.
People want to worship God, so the regulation has limited the growth of churches, you know, but we are not that of a big church. At least 1,000 does accommodate us, but there are larger churches in South Africa that can have, you know, big numbers, so it's still a limit, and we are calling for the scrapping of this national disaster.
Members of the public have until the 24th of April to comment on proposed new health regulations to manage COVID-19, which includes protocols like indoor venue capacity and the compulsory wearing of masks indoors. Monique Mortlock, Cape Town.